Yeah, cool. So your first new phone in so many years, and
In 11 years, 11 years. I had to do it. I had to do it.
right,
My
because
last tour was a catastrophe communication wise because it's in America doing the tour. There's always McDonald's, free Wi-Fi, but in Europe it was not that easy, and now it's very hard. Even they require a telephone number in the country, like in Switzerland, for instance.
right.
So I decided, well, war. It's good to have communication.
Yeah,
So
so and it comes in good time too because of all the situation and everything. So yeah, so I guess let's just get right on it because you will be the
okay.
first repeating guest in my
Oh wow.
podcast. So I'm very
Oh
happy
sure.
to, yeah. So for all the people that are
It's
going
an
to be
honor. It's an
listening,
honor.
yeah, and all the people that are going to be listening and watching in this case, they can come back and listen to our first interview, which was I think 2019, and when
Yes,
we
yes,
were when we met in
excellent,
Toronto. So I would recommend people to watch that. But Yuri, thank you
excellent,
for
excellent.
joining me and in such trying times. But in any case, it's good to
Absolutely.
reconnect. Good to reconnect with old friends.
Yes, yes. It's good. It's good to hear from you, Pedro. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, so you are so like let's jump right into it, and I'll give you the floor for because you are the
Okay.
one literally on the field with this. But basically
Okay.
just to give a little bit of context, like we connected about a week ago when I was unfortunately had to leave Ukraine. I was in Odessa in the south of Ukraine,
Okay.
and then things were getting a little bit like confusing. And then I decided, you know
Yeah.
what, I will bring my wife and we'll leave. We got the first flight on Sunday. That's a week ago
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
to Istanbul. But then I we connected on Facebook
Uh-huh.
that you said trying to get your wife and your kids back in the United States, but you decided to
Uh-huh.
stay and
Right.
continue your Kobzar work and the work needed in Ukraine, which I admire you
Uh-huh.
immensely for the consistency on that. So that's
Thank
sort
you.
of
Thank
like
you.
the preamble. And right now you are in Poltava, I believe.
It's a village, a small village, kind of between Poltava and Kiev, not far from Pryatyn, the city of Pryatyn. It's a small village, maybe 300 people, maybe less.
Right.
So not too far from Kiev. It's about 2 hours. Going fast, I could actually make it an hour.
Oh, wow.
So and actually the airport is even closer than Kiev. So we actually took 3 trips to the airport to get my family out. It wasn't easy to get out,
Yeah.
but this is one of the reasons why I picked this village, close enough to Borispol, so that when the war did happen, as it is now, we're ready to evacuate, and we did. So
Yeah. And
everything by plan. Everything by plan.
that's amazing. Yeah. And you mentioned that you have 4 kids. Is that it? And your wife is pregnant. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, yes. She's 7 months pregnant. We expect in April. April. Maybe I'll be there. Hopefully, I will be. But we'll see. The idea was to not necessarily because we're afraid or I'm afraid what'll happen. I do care for my family, of course. I mean, I have a wonderful family. I absolutely love living with my family and everything about it. I mean, we have a really, really, I guess you'd call it a successful family, maybe. But there's a specific reason why I sent them to Raleigh, North Carolina, in the United States, and that was actually the plan to do so about a year ago.
Oh,
The plan
wow.
was for us all three to immigrate, or all the whole family to immigrate to America. For my children to finally learn English because they don't speak English very well. Not my wife. We speak Ukrainian, but it was so expensive to fly to America that I decided maybe next season, maybe next year. Don't have a lot of money. Basically, I live off donations from Kobzaring, or kind of having concerts around the world, mostly the Western world. But once my family started saying, "Yuri, things are bad. Look on the news. The American news is on the case." Even that wasn't so convincing, because who
Hmm.
knows what they show in the news. But when America started offering money to Americans to evacuate, that means they're really serious.
Yeah.
And that means the situation is serious. We don't have a lot of information, reliable information, even here in Ukraine. So what I did is I called up the embassy and said, is this true? Because we have, 6 people flying Ukraine to Kiev to Raleigh. That's going to cost about, $3,000 if you get a ticket in advance. That's a lot of money for us. That's like we could live for years on $3,000 in the village.
Yeah.
So we don't like to waste money. So the embassy said, no, it's not true. We're not giving money. We only lend money, and it's very expensive because we buy very expensive tickets. So they said it's better not to take the loan. And I decided not to, because this is a waste of money. And I don't even want to waste, for such a thing. So, but the interesting thing was the embassy, I did ask them, well, if we want to get out of the country to evacuate in case the Moscow tanks do come down our road, will my children be able to get out of the country without passports? And they had passports, but they expired last month.
Oh.
So the embassy said, no, you won't be able to get out at all or go anywhere except Turkey. Now, I don't know why Turkey is the exception,
yeah, I kind of know why. It's because there is a lot of trade going on between Ukraine and Turkey, and a lot of Ukrainians come down to Turkey to buy goods and then resell in Ukraine. And there is a new partnership between Ukraine and Turkey that is basically a tax-free zone or something like that. It was just announced by Zelensky like 2 weeks ago. So there is a deep connection between Turkey, where I am right now, and Ukraine from a trade point of view. So the Ottoman enemies before became friends, which is a great thing. But I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to mention that. But so your kids.
So we could go to Turkey.
Yes, yeah. So then you were we have a place to stay if we stick around here. So in your case, so then you were saying like your kids didn't have passports. So how did you deal with that?
Well, interesting situation. Actually, my wife said, Yuri, let's get some passports. It's like a month ago. And I said, listen, it's going to cost $500 to get all these passports. Maybe it's not necessary. Maybe we'll get some Ukrainian passports because they have dual citizenship, Ukrainian and American. But they have the internal passport for Ukrainian citizenship. They don't have the passport that lets you go abroad. But with the way things were going, that didn't happen. So once I did call the embassy to get, some kind of financial help for flying out, I asked them, okay, well, if we need passports, let's go and do that. They said, we're going to close the embassy in 2 hours, and we don't know when we'll open back up because we're leaving to Western Ukraine. So basically, I live 2 hours away from the embassy, right? So the absolute last minute, I had, the absolute last chance, as they say in America, by the skin of my teeth, I got the passports. But, physically, it wasn't actually possible. I would have had to drive 150 kilometers an hour through the snow. It wasn't so bad. It was actually a warmer day. There wasn't ice, luckily. I've never driven so fast in my life. But I wanted to have the possibility to get out, my children to get out, if need be. But the idea that this is the absolute last minute, the way I see the world in my philosophy and my faith is that God talks to us through such signals. We call it serendipity, I guess. It's not a coincidence. This is when God kind of, hits you in the cheek and says, Yuri,
go
get in the car and get the passports. I have a very good reason for getting your children out. And that scared me. Not anything. That really scared me. So we got the passports. They were very nice. The embassy, they said, okay, we're closing, but we're going to make an exception for your 4 children and your pregnant wife. But they said even there, you have to do all these documents, all this paperwork, and you only have like half an hour. You have to get passport photos somewhere in town. So I'm constantly saying to the children, be good, be nice, don't fight, don't get angry with one another because we're still not on the plane. You're still on the plane. So it was an incredible day. After we got the passports, we went to the airport, and I didn't know what was happening. Maybe everybody's fleeing. Maybe it's chaos. It was completely calm and quiet. but there weren't a lot of people there. This is very strange.
Mhm.
It was very quiet for, a Saturday in Borispil. And we made a reservation through some, I think, Qatar Airlines. It cost $4,000, but we couldn't pay for it because they needed you to have a physical credit card with you to buy it. I found a sponsor, my father, Eric Brewer, and he said, yes, okay, $4,000 can pay for that. But he couldn't do the charge. So we made a reservation, and I decided to come back to Borispil the next day because we didn't even have a time to pack. My wife did not want to get on the plane just right now. She wanted to leave the house, in order and, feed the cats and pack well for, who knows how long, leaving to America, maybe never coming back home. So we did that, but the next day, the airport said, we canceled your reservation. We sold it to somebody else. And I said, well, how could you do that? They said, well, I don't know, but we did it and we can't do anything about it. So I said, okay, I would like make another, at that point, basically my life savings, I was ready to put down to get out of Ukraine. We don't have a lot, and I didn't even know if I had $4,000. But the lady said that the next flight would be the next day. We have to come back to the airport, and that would cost $8,000. So the prices doubled in one day. And I'm talking to my father and saying, well, maybe he could order something from America. He has a travel agent, and it took him hours upon hours to get the plane ticket physically in the hand. That happened that night. But talking to the agents at the ticket counter in Borispil, I told them, listen, the prices are going high. There's nobody here. You can't get on a flight. It looks like the airport is shutting down. She said, yes, it looks like that. It looks like that's happening to us as well. And we've had a warning that tonight at 4 a.m., the airspace in Ukraine will be closed and no planes will be flying anywhere. So I decided, okay, I'll just get my family out of Ukraine into Europe. And hopefully my wife and children who don't speak English, my pregnant wife and 4 small children, maybe if they can be out of Ukrainian airspace, then they can fly from Warsaw, Poland to America. But she said, no, there are no flights to Europe. For your price budget, they said the cheapest thing you could get was to fly to Paris for $2,000 and then from Paris fly to America. So things are getting very expensive. And I said, okay, I'll make a reservation for Paris. But my father's reservation went through, and I said, okay, I'm not going to risk my wife having to buy a ticket in Paris, and who knows what could happen, the stress. I decided we're going to take a chance. We're going to fly out the next day if the airport's open. So we went home, we packed, we got some sleep finally. And in the morning, we very confidently went to the airport. It was a beautiful day. The airport was open. And I'm asking my wife, well, why did God give us this trial in tribulation to have to travel 3 times to the airport just to fly out? And she said, well, it's probably so that we'll be very happy and confident to do the interviews that we just did. There were 5 interviews at the airport, Radio Free Europe, and some Ukrainian channels. And interesting that I think that's what the purpose was. At that time, I was so happy to get my family in the plane, and my children were so happy. They're ready. Can you imagine a child who knows the Muscovites are coming, they're bombing, they're threatening to kill, and the option to get out, to get a safe space, to go to their grandmother in America who has a new 2-story house. She loves her. They've only seen grandmother one time. So for them, this is, there's no question about leaving. But for the news to fix that moment in Borispil when they're ready to get on the plane, and with my children, it's incredible. These are kind of journalist dreams. And for me, it's also my dream to bring some kind of help or some kind of use of our lives here in Ukraine to show the world what's really going on, and through my words and through my family. So we had an interview with Radio for Europe, and my wife too. I have the basolia, the instrument on my wife's instrument on my back, and they say, "Do you sing?" My children don't like to sing with us.
Typical.
But that in the airport to sing, a religious song to Mary, Mother of God, to protect Ukraine in English, Salve Regina. My children, what a song my children love, really. We all sang in the airport. It's on the piece. I actually haven't seen it. Hopefully I'll find it. Maybe it's on the internet somewhere. But people from, even in the airport, the guy selling the ticket for parking, even he saw it in 10 minutes. So this is incredible stuff. Even in Canada, they called. They said, "Yes, we saw you. We understand what's happening," and that's how God works. So basically, the next step of the trial is, should I get on the plane? And I could. It's very simple. I just get on the plane. But on that first day that I decided to call the embassy, I made the decision that this is not what I should do. This would be a huge mistake for me, for Ukraine, for a lot of things. But the 3 days I had with my children, driving through Kiev and going back home to the village, I had a chance to very well explain to them that I'm not coming to America. I'm not going to be with them. I'm staying here to fight the Muscovites, to defend my country, and to make sure we have a Ukraine to come home to. And that's another reason why we had those 3 days, that my children will understand this whole situation. I mean, you can imagine, they could hate me now. Why did Father abandon us? But I'm not abandoning them. I put them in a safe place, and it's time for me to do what I do. And even my family is saying, you're a bad father. You're a terrible father, to abandon your children. What are you doing this for your own glory, for your own career? Is this, some kind of, risk your own neck and prove to the world that, you're brave or something. But all that's very tempting. It's all very nice, really. I understand the benefits, even, that my career might have had I do these things. I know I've thought these things through very well, but the main reason is that I don't want to lose Ukraine. And if I leave and we do lose Ukraine, I will feel guilty my whole life that I could have done so much, that I was one of the few people who'd worked my whole life. My life's work is to save Ukraine. I'm not the one person. There's lots of Ukrainians who do this. But my work with the Kobzar tradition and revive the tradition, it's not just to revive the old music and the tradition. It's to revive Ukraine through the tradition. It's a tradition created to keep Ukraine Ukrainian, to keep it alive. And I believe in that mission. I know the power of the Kobzars. I've seen it over the world through my Kobzaring travels for the past 5 years. And this is not the time to retreat just because Putin shows his teeth or whatever he's showing on the border there. I don't believe in weapons. I don't believe in bombs. I believe in love. I believe that God is love, and the God that I pray to and believe in, that it's a question for us as Ukrainians to defend Ukraine. You have to love one another. You have to ask God, how do we do this? And I have asked God many times, and the answers that come into my head are to do what you've been doing for these past 23 years. Don't retreat. This is the time to go where no man has gone before. And to do things which maybe I've never done. And I realize that God has prepared me through the revolutions, through all the years, the 7 years of war. And I think Ukraine is ready. This situation is not for Putin to take Ukraine. This is a gift from God to prepare Ukraine for bigger and better things, a time when Ukraine will become a leader of the West, not just a part of the European Union. And when I see the positive benefits of what's going on, I have a big smile.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm worried. My heart has been hurting. I've never had this for the past several weeks, and that's understandable. But I have such inspiration. Maybe this is what the Holy Spirit. I'm certain this is what the apostles would have felt when they received the uteshitl, the one that makes you happy. I'm way too happy to. Maybe people think I'm a little bit crazy. It's not craziness; it's preparedness.
Yeah, no. Yeah,
And
that's
it's wonderful, really. I'm having a wonderful time. It's
that,
scary, I think about the worst possible scenario that the Muscovites do come, and when they will come, they say there's a list of people to be arrested.
yeah.
I hope I'm on that list. I'll be very disenchanted after all these years of work of battling Moscow through helping Ukraine, that they say, oh, he's just some American. No, I think I will be the sacrifice, the big sacrifice. Putin says the Americans are to blame, and here we have the American who's been has an evil plot to divide Ukraine and America. He's doing all these things. He has money from Biden, from Trump, from Obama. Here he is. So it wouldn't be a pretty picture had I been in a Moscovite jail. It might be better for them to outright kill me, but I don't believe they can, because I believe God decides when it's time to die, when it's time to go to heaven, when it's time to make that example as Christ made on the cross. Honestly, I'm ready to go. It's not a big deal. As a Christian, it's not a big deal for me. But I don't want to go. I want to. I'm having so much fun here on Earth.
Yeah, and it's
that I'm not ready for heaven. Maybe it's nice in paradise, but it's pretty good here. And for me, it's pretty good because the positive benefits are big, and I'm a channel for sharing the positiveness of what's happening, the cultural unity. I've seen it in the first Maidan, in the second revolution. And war possibly will be even more spiritual for those who look for that spirituality is a means of defending who you love and the world you love. It's as I say, I wouldn't miss this for my life.
Right. That's amazing. It's so interesting to see, like, at least like me being like a Brazilian guy that is a country that usually didn't get into wars for a long time. We have our own problems, but we it's not a like we are not like in Ukraine that has been invaded by all these different throughout the millennia, right? They've been invaded by different
Yes,
peoples,
yes.
and then in the end they became a part of what Ukraine is, which is a uniqueness, which apparently
Right.
we should mention that this is being recorded on February 22nd, so things may change, and we'll put this out
Oh, wow.
like today or tomorrow, but it's one of those things that things may change very fast. And literally yesterday, Putin said that the two regions of Ukraine are basically, he's considering to be independent republics or something like that. But what I was thinking was, as I was walking around, that I can sort of like empathize, even though being from Brazil, that it's not a warrior nation in a way, and I know Ukraine is not as well. It's like, leave me alone. And as I was walking in Odessa, seeing all those young kids, basically all Ukrainians, just playing in the playgrounds and just walking around, and even when I'm playing music, like it's Arabic drums in Ukraine, and then all these kids. Like sometimes we'd play for kids competitions because Ukrainians love competitions of all kinds. Then these kids would come and hug me, and it's like this foreigner playing these songs. And I was thinking, I was remembering all these things, like all these kids are in jeopardy because of this geopolitical horribleness. And I was thinking, I understand. This is even before me talking to you. I was thinking, I understand why people stay and try to defend their land. Like, it's a new thing for me in terms of understanding that mindset. And in a way, the way that you're doing it, which is through love, compassion, instead of having guns, that spread bullets, you spread notes, trying to bring love, which is
Feeling,
sort of like
feeling.
how I see what you do, which is why I admire it so much. And
Right.
in the same of you, like it's one thing to go to Ukraine with a Kobzar calling when you don't have the threat of war directly,
Right, right,
and
right.
it's another
Sure, sure,
thing when, yeah, like when push comes to shove, as they say, right? So it's so
sure, sure, sure.
interesting. And in your case, like I can see the passion, I can see the beauty of like how you see things turning out. And I saw recently on your Facebook that you're going to go actually around Ukraine doing this Kobzar tradition and
Yes, yes.
doing basically like bringing songs, bringing conversations, bringing art and culture to unite the country. So
Yes,
can you
yes.
talk a little bit about that project? And feel free to go anywhere you want.
Well, we have a lot of experience with Kobzaring, me for the past 5 years in the West, also a little bit in Ukraine. But in general, I haven't done any mass tours of Ukraine because there's problems. People don't donate. The roads are terrible. You need gas. There's a lot of problems here in Ukraine. We have tried. We actually started last year with the Poltava region. We had about 20 concerts and things were great. We actually covered our expenses. We didn't have a lot to bring home to feed the children, but we had great, very successful. We didn't have a minus account, a debt from that. So the decision was made for to do these oblast tours, go to each state and do the whole state, do maybe 20 or 30 stops, and spread do the Kobzar tradition, as we say, Kobzaring, to each individual oblast. And presently, I've been looking at Kharkiv Oblast to be the next one,
Oh wow.
or some other oblast on the front. And we have experience with not just my solo Kobzaring, but other ensembles which I have in Ukraine, such as Chore Kozatsky, Karpatiani, Drevo. We have had lots of activity, music making, festivals in all across Ukraine, but almost never. And in fact, never. We'd never been to Donetsk Oblast or Luhansk Oblast. And I had a conversation with a friend, and he agreed that yes, the oblast that we lost are the oblast we didn't go to.
Huh.
Now you might say, well, this is crazy, okay, you're full of it. You're thinking that just because you go there, that oblast will be saved. And I don't know, but I do know the same situation is living in Ukraine. It's not a good question to ask. It's better just to go and do what you can do, and know that you did everything you could do while you can do it. We can't go to the occupied territories in Crimea, Donetsk, or Luhansk. I don't plan to go Kobzaring on Red Square, although once the war broke out, that was the first thing that hit my mind, was to go there. But because of the dangers, I decided that I'm not ready for that. Maybe I will be at some point. But even in Crimea, we actually did have several concerts with Chore Kozatsky where we played Kobzar repertoire in Sevastopol and I believe in Yalta, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful. But interesting, I had a certain premonition while walking in the hills near Bakhchasarай in Crimea, and with my friends going these old kind of these dwellings in the rock, which people had made these caves. And I had a premonition that World War III would start with Crimea. And I talked to my friends about this, and okay, we've seen some people, even at that time, this is like 2012, 2009, no, it's 2009, people were driving with Moscow flags. It was very strange. What Moscow flags in Ukraine? But Putin had been preparing for this whole geopolitical invasion for years. And not just Putin, this is the Soviet mentality and the Russian Empire in general. They don't pack up and go. They perestroyet. They change. They change their appearance, but really the geopolitical goals are the same. So when George Bush and the aircraft carrier in I think the Black Sea said to Putin, you have 5 days to get out of Tbilisi after Russia invaded, a Ukrainian journalist went up to the Muscovite in the tank and says, you know, where you're going home to? You're going home now, you know. Where are you going to go to next? And he says, I'm coming to Ukraine. You know, we're coming to get you. And Putin said, let your women prepare my soldiers' borscht. So this was about, 11, 12 years ago. We knew it was coming. We've had this time to prepare. We didn't make it to Donbass, but we have been to the front. Myself, not a lot, several times. It's a lot. It costs a lot to go out there. And usually the army doesn't call me because I'm not such a huge supporter of guns. My colleagues who are, they have a little bit different philosophy. They're the ones to get out to the front. My word is a word of love and peace, but a word that we have to have a border. We have to have distance from Moscow. No allowing of the Muscovite tanks or any influence to get into Ukraine. That's my word. But my strategy is through God, because God can do everything that we can't do. The idea, I would compare this situation. The best Facebook meme has been David and Goliath. We're the David. We have the potential to defend ourselves. We have not atomic weapons that we used to. We have atomic turbans. And this is my philosophy. I believe it. I'm constantly asking myself, should I go to the front over these 7 years and get a gun and fight? I can do it. Ukraine is a Cossack nation. It's just it's kind of been beaten out of them for a long time, but it's coming back. It is back. The Cossacks were the most fearless of fighters. My relatives from the Poltava region where I live now, they had to pack up and leave 250 years ago. They were professionally trained defenders of the Cossack state, Hetmanshina. But they, when they lost the war with Mazepa against Peter the not so great, as we say in Ukraine, they had to also pack up and leave. They left to Turkey. They left to Izmail, which is a part of the Ottoman Empire at that time, hoping to have birth to the next generation and come back home and get rid of the slavery which Peter the not so great and Catherine the not so great imposed on Ukraine for the next 300 years. But then my family in Izmail were joined by my great-grandfather from Kiev, who was of a Cossack stock. He was an officer in the Petlura army. In 1921 or 22, when he lost with Petlura, they had to pack up and go, and he left for Romania, the town in Izmail, which was Turkey but became Romania. And his job was to convince Romanians to fight, to help Ukraine fight and keep the Soviets out. They said, you don't have a horse, so you can't join the Romanian army. So he decided to paint icons and met his future wife, Larissa Tchaikovska. Her father was a Poltavian, native Poltavian of Cossack stock, a priest. And they got married and hoped to return home at some point after she had birth with the next generation, my grandmother and her brother and sister. But when the Soviets made it to Izmail and beat my great-grandfather and said, you're not just an icon painter. Who are you? He had to run and hide in the swamp and breathe through a straw. And his son, Yurko Mashinsky, would feed him. So eventually they had to pack up and go. He said to his family, okay, we can't all go to Switzerland. It's a risk. So we'll all divide up. His youngest daughter was, I think, 10 years old. She made it, as well as my grandmother. They said, okay, in 1 year we'll meet in Switzerland. Oh. So all these instances of leaving your homeland, it's in my family history. But to have, the possibility to have that experience myself, it's scary. It's terrible. I don't want it. But I realize God is preparing me and my children for this cause. to come back home. And why come back home? It's not anti-Russian. I have lots of, I don't know, not lots of Russian friends. I have several who I do love and respect, and I care for them and hope that they can bring down the Tsarist throne, which destroys their own culture. But I very much realize that this information is for the benefit of Ukraine, and my family is very important. They have the same genes I do. They have those same Cossack genes, those same how do I say, genes. Many ancestors of mine were priests, teachers. It's in my children. They are made for Ukraine, and I am making them for Ukraine. That's why they're being born here in the Poltava region, not even in Kiev, not even in America. I want Ukrainian children who have the same cause I do. And when it's time to send them home, especially with my wife who's pregnant, and it doesn't cost anything, I found a sponsor, there's no question. But I think the reason, Pedro, that God wanted me to take the family is not because we're going to be completely annihilated, but because if I have a family with me, I can't travel Ukraine. I have to be with my family. But if they're in safe territory, right, in Rivendell, remember Rivendell,
right,
as the hobbits would say, then I'm free to go anywhere and anywhere. I can risk my life. I'm not going to risk theirs. They've maybe seen enough for this episode. Maybe they'll see more. I don't know. I think it's time to learn English and see an alternative to the Soviet world that we still live in Ukraine. And I'm convinced that I must do everything I can. And I hope that this is the secret weapon we have had in Ukraine for generations, the Kobzar tradition, a tradition that has kept Ukraine Ukrainian, even when Ukraine has been without a physical border for 300 years. The glue that even under Moscow occupation has kept Ukraine alive. Not just the Kobzars, but also the poets, Skovoroda, Shevchenko. We have other traditions aside from guns. And that's what I do. And that's what it's a school. Life is a school for everybody. You have to pass the test. You might be killed. Everybody dies at some point. But my interest is to investigate what we can do as Kobzars, to be an example for my younger students and other students who are getting ready to go with me. It's not going to be a solo tour. I'm ready to go myself. I don't know how long. It might be a month, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months. Maybe a year, I don't know. But when I see all these resources which God has given me, I have a car, right, with seat 7. My father, who has moved in and bought a place several houses down in our village, he's left. He's in Puerto Rico, right, in safety. But I asked him, Eric, Father, would you like to lend us your Toyota Sequoia and your huge trailer with a generator so that we can travel with a company of 14. So I gave the word to my friends in Kiev. I was just there. I said, listen, I'm looking for 14 candidates to go around Ukraine and do the similar work which I do. Other Kobzars, other musicians who have a program also geared for helping people pray, helping people believe in God, believing themselves, believing the power of love. And just yesterday, I put out the announcement that in 2 weeks' time, we'll start. Actually, the first concert has been booked for the last month, actually. And actually, the house where Taras Shevchenko, the national poet of Ukraine, lived, just outside of Maidan Nezalezhnosti, the Independence Square. So that's kind of symbolic. And just now, I'm now accepting invitations. So if anybody hears this radio program and knows someone in Ukraine who could possibly facilitate having a performance anywhere in Ukraine, we can go anywhere and everywhere. Let them tell their friends or family in Ukraine to help arrange a visit. And even there's a question of how we'll pay for this whole project. My car is diesel. It's not too expensive, but Father Eric's car is a gas guzzler, if you know the Toyota Sequoia.
Yes.
So we're going to do a fundraiser as well. But realistically, we don't need a lot of funds. And I'm actually convinced that God will provide, as he always does. I've never had a tour that has been a debt. So it's not a problem. But we're getting ready. In 2 weeks' time, we'll be on the road and we'll be in Ukraine. And if the Moscow tanks come and we have to retreat, we will retreat. But it's only when we see the whites of their eyes
Right.
that we'll consider such a thing. Because we're convinced Putin is a terrorist. He wants terror.
Yeah.
And he has terror without even having to, send, a huge air force or anything. So we'll do what we can do. If all Ukrainians get up and leave, it'll be very simple to walk into Ukraine. That's what he wants. That's what he's expecting. That Ukraine is a bunch of wussies. The Ukrainians don't love their country. They're slaves like a lot of Russians today, and Ukrainians are still slaves to the Russian propaganda. But we'll see, as Robert Johnson would say. And when I return again, I'll have a great big story to tell. And hopefully I'll have not just a story, but I'll have an example for the world. I'm hoping American TV will arrange an interview. They can talk to, our president. That's great. They can talk to some official leaders. But I'm an ethnic American. My grandmother traced her family to the American Revolution. I'm an Eagle Scout. I'm a wonderful example. Even the ambassador in Kiev, the American embassy, he said, "Let us have a link. You're the best example of what Americans are doing and the good they're doing in Ukraine." So I know I have support, and I hope to get onto American TV to convince Americans that they must support Ukraine. This is a war of the free world against the slave world, against the dictatorship of Russia, and maybe not only Russia. Mm-hmm. There's others in the East who are still communists. It's nice. It's wonderful. America is providing dollars. That Europe is providing some war machines. I don't know how much Europe is helping. England is making a wonderful example. Their embassy is still open in Kiev. They did not flee. It's so nice to have the free world have this possibility to become united against a threat to the free world. But it's so nice that it's the Ukrainian boys who are dying now and have been dying for 7 years. It would be nice to have the support of Americans who also believe in freedom on Ukrainian soil. I don't want escalation. Nobody does. But if Putin is going to have a horde of hundreds of thousands, it'd be nice to have some folks, at least on the Polish-Ukrainian border, ready to come in. How do I say? I think the scenario is that Biden will let Putin get to Kiev, but it'll probably the Bush scenario when he'll say, okay, you have several days to get out or we're coming in. So 5 days, it's kind of scary. I don't think they'll catch me in 5 days. I'm convinced they won't. But in 5 days, they can do a lot of damage. I wouldn't like that to happen. So I would say, let's get some troops on the Polish-Ukrainian border ready to come in when they need to. That's a good plan.
Yeah, I think what Biden has is like 3,000 or 5,000 troops in the Ukrainian and the Polish border as of now, and I think that's from this week or last. So I'm not really sure. People have to fact check on that, but it's interesting. Okay. Just one thing in terms of like the if people listen to this or watch this and they want to contribute, because there's so many Ukrainian Americans, so many Ukrainian Canadians. I'm very big part and friends with the Ukrainians in Canada. If they want, if people would love to donate to create these shows, to create this tour around Ukraine, do you have like a PayPal or some sort of like way that people can give some funds to you, into your cause? Do you have that set up already?
Yes, basically, I don't have it set up because actually I don't do fundraisers. This is actually the first one I've ever done. Okay. I have the philosophy, it's not my duty to look for money. because God always provides without having to do that.
Okay.
I do what I do. I research the tradition, make instruments, and do the work. But realistically, I can say right now that I have an American bank account. And if anybody's interested, you can send a check to my mother, Christine Brewer, in Franklinton, North Carolina. And I have a BB&T bank account which people can basically send money to if they're interested.
Yeah, maybe I can convince you to get a PayPal account and just we can put a link because then but it's your choice. Like it's one of those things that sometimes people as they show
well,
as
actually, I do have Pedro, I do have a PayPal account.
okay, we'll put on the link here and on the show notes, but you'll send me later.
Okay,
but
okay, I'll just
I was
send you
just
the link.
saying, yeah, because and that's one of those things. Like it's not. I know in your case because I've seen your work from afar, but it's not about like gathering money. And even this thing we just touched on this, and I would recommend people to come and listen to the other episode we did together. But basically, you do this so that just a little like summary of this. You create this. Besides like the Kobzar and beside doing like all this let's say more artistic religious transcendental work, you also do transcendental work in the recreation of this ancient, not ancient, but like old instruments from Ukraine that you're doing according to as best we can with the specs of how they were, the original banduras, the original kobza. Can you talk just a little bit so people can understand that context as well?
Well, basically, the idea is, or the theory is, that Kobzars were very integral to keeping Ukraine Ukrainian. Under Muscovite occupation, this is 300 years in eastern Ukraine. A lot of that time, we had the Kobzar traditions. It was created around the time when the Moscows moved in. This is interesting. In about 1700, that's the Battle of Poltava. A little bit after, we have wounded Cossacks coming home. And there's this idea that maybe a Cossack who's wounded, he can't fight, but he can sing. We have these, it's kind of like musical therapy or religious therapy to heal, to spread the word. And the tradition was born actually out of this Muscovite contact or conflict where Ukraine lost its independence for 30 years. So the Kobzars existed until 1933 when they were all exterminators, starved to death or shot by during the Ukrainian genocide, when millions of Ukrainians were starved to death. So for all that time, the Kobzars created and wielded this tradition. And our belief or our theory is that if we can recreate that tradition and get to know what they did, their technology of music making and preaching, then maybe we can be effective as they were effective. And because of that, we have to know exactly who they were, what is their philosophy, what is their repertoire, what were their instruments, what was the mentality on a very deep spiritual and scientific level. So it's a lot of work because Stalin didn't leave us a lot of stuff, right? Instruments were destroyed, people were killed, nobody's made the instruments for 100 years or played the instruments for 100 years, or let's say 90 years now. So it's difficult, but interesting thing, in the search for this information, we found that it would have been so simple for the Russian Empire to completely destroy the tradition. They tried, but always we find some hidden resource, right? For the bandura playing tradition. One boy from Kharkiv who escaped the genocide, he moved to Moscow, he got a job, is some civil, engineer or architect. Then he comes back to Kiev and he sees nobody's playing the tradition. He starts teaching people. Because this one person, we have traditional repertoire, how to play the bandura with the kobza. And actually, I show you, right? Here's the kobza, here's the bandura, here's the torban. This is where I practice, basically. I'm getting ready. Basically, the kobza, the same thing. The last kobza who played the kobza was Barasai. We don't have almost any other information, how they played, what they played, their tuning. Even instruments, there's not one kobza. But because of one ethnomusicologist, Mykola Lysenko, he recorded the whole repertoire of Versailles. The same thing with the third national instrument, the torban. We have nothing except for the last torbanist, Vidort, also recorded by this composer and pianist and conductor, culture diplomat Mykola Lysenko. So when we see that God wants the Kobzars to be preserved, that means he wants them to come back. That means that we have a mission to do this. As the Blues Brothers said, it's a mission from God.
Right.
And I'd have to be a complete idiot to say, no, this isn't the case. This is just some, we're Tolkienists, running through the woods, saving Gondor or something. But we're convinced and we know our worth. And for me to leave Ukraine, I would be betraying myself, my country, my family, everything I believe. I would be betraying God, and I'm not ready for that.
And
hopefully I don't want to ever be. Yes,
I don't think it's going to happen. It's like from what I see of your work, and even with the temptations of cowardness, right? But it takes some belief and love to be able to like find and keep your calling, and even if you fall at some point, you get back. But it's interesting what you said about the like this person like that fled to Moscow, or in your case that was in the US, and maybe even your kids now, like there's all this circle of like coming back to the land eventually, because they will have their childhood in a very, let's say, very deeply, authentically Ukrainian way. And I think even for, as you said, like that, as they say here, that heroes don't die. And I think that here, I mean, in Ukraine, in my heart, I'm still there for some reason, because I had to leave so suddenly.
Wonderful.
Yeah, but
you're doing wonderful work. Wonderful work.
I will try. It's having lived there for a while, and then fallen. Like I was already in love with the Ukrainian, and then I fell in love with the culture too, and with the potential of and kindness. Even though sometimes there is the Soviet influence of being like in a bad mood or in despair, or even learn helplessness. There is the thing that's still like to this day, whenever I think about it, the voices of Ukraine, that's people trying, it's sort of almost like a resurrection that keeps going on all the time. Like that's how I see. And and the beauty of the international community, because I always, as a like world music lover and wanting to connect cultures, very Brazilian thing, then American in that sense too. But like this idea of like when you learn about the culture of another place, it will become part of you. And and I think that that's probably the power of the Kobzar, because if they were in the past, and probably as you are like resurrecting today as well, to showcase all these traditions and all these things that even in Ukraine back then, it would be people that had never sometimes even heard of each other because of the difficulty of travel, and they were the connectors that were making sure that there was a galvanization. I mean, that's my take as a person that's seen from afar, and it's a beautiful thing. And one thing I'd recommend as you do this, besides making it easy for people, especially in the free world, to provide the tools of financial freedom to be able to go after these things, and it's not that much money that I know, and you guys will use it well, but also to document with your phone and with whoever is there, document it and put it out there, like the recordings that you can whenever it's possible.
Making an example, that's the main thing. And for the world is watching. For no other time in history has the world so much supported Ukraine.
Yes.
There's so many wonderful things happening, and I wanted you mentioned a very interesting thing about these wanderers, right? The Kobzari would have looked at the apostles as the ideal example of what they had to be, and when my interest in the Kobzar tradition is, this is a local Ukrainian tradition, which is a deeply spiritual Christian tradition. And reading the Bible, you hear about how the apostles did what they do. Who am I to preach or say something which people might have some interest? But God gives you the word. I've seen this happen. I know the apostle mission, and this is no different. This is today. And I remember many times when I, in Kiev, started reading the Bible much more, and stopped being so interested in being on the stage with playing rock and roll and ethno rock and all this. Really, my dream was to become an apostle, and what an honor that would have been But here, you know, the apostles, they had great danger. Eventually they were martyred, they were killed as their teacher, Jesus. So I'm prepared. I don't want to be killed, but I have the faith, I think, that it takes to be a Ukrainian apostle. And that's a very serious, a wonderful thing for me. I mean, this is realization, not just a Kobzar as a musician or as a Ukrainian, but this is on a completely different level. And the happiness I feel, I mean, this is really God's giving me the power to do wonderful things. And, you know, how could I possibly have any doubt? So it's not, you know, these are steps of preparation to this. And I want to become stronger. I want to grow. This for me is a school. I'll make mistakes too. And that's how you learn. You make the mistake and you learn from it, and you hopefully learn from it. Really the most important thing of what we do is the example. Christ could have said wonderful things, but the fact that those things were written down, and today you can read those things and learn from his example, that's very important. And through even a podcast or an ABC Nightline interview, ABC contacted me. It was a wonderful feeling that the world wants to hear what I have to say, but the conviction that I do have something to say, and am looking, if anybody hears this, get me in contact with NBC, ABC, BBC, not for what I have to say, but the true leader in Ukraine is not just Zelensky. Zelensky's doing a great job. I heard him on Munich television the other day. Wonderful, his own words, not the speech somebody wrote for him. But the question is, well, who is the true leader in Ukraine? It's my best friend, Taras Kompanychenko. And I told him, listen, we have to get you on American television. But the two of us, as musicians, as friends, myself as a bridge to the West, him as the leader, you know, I would elect him as a president, but he would never become president. He's not interested in all the dirtiness of politics. Maybe it'll happen, actually. I think it would be a great thing for Ukraine. If anybody has contact with Western press anywhere, I love to do interviews. I love to, you know, tell what has to be said, and possibly that way spread our Kobzar word and the voice of Ukraine. So please contact me through Facebook, Jurij Fedynskyj, Jurij Fedynskyj. Do a message request, set up interviews. On the road, I'll have internet contact, hopefully. So please, our movement, our what do you say? Our movement, really, which will movement on wheels going through Ukraine. We don't know yet how it'll be, but I expect it'll be something Ukraine has never seen. Something the Kobzar tradition has never seen. Something the world will need to make the decision: support Ukraine or support Russia. You have two choices. And the situation now, I want to say, one of the last things I really need to say is this is not about Ukraine versus Russia. This is about an evil emperor who maybe he has his own geopolitical interests, but really this is not even about the emperor. This is about who is behind the empire, right? Some people compare Putin to the Antichrist. I do too, without question. But Ukraine is what? Ukraine is a history, is a very specific nation that has the possibility to be a world leader because it's lived through so much over 300 years. No nation has been so much prepared. They couldn't kill us after 300 years. They couldn't make us into little Russians. And with all that, you give us 30 years, and you have a nation that's ready, like David was ready to take out Goliath. And I think it'll happen. Putin's not going to take over Ukraine.
It's for sure a fight between free world democracy and harmony and good values against people that are, let's say, misled with their ambitions, for sure.
Yes. It's good against evil. It's good against evil. And people want to know who's the good guy, who's the evil guy. Now, of course, in wars, there's good and bad everywhere in both sides. And part of my work is to work with the people in Ukraine who are saying, we want to kill the enemy. I don't want to kill anybody. I want to understand what Jesus meant when he said, love your enemy. Mm-hmm. That's a different type of fight. And I'm convinced that the Kobzar tradition is something closer to what Jesus had in mind, how to be the good pastor. Yes, the pastor has a stick, but in the today's world, the wolf is a different type of sort, right? And through positiveness, through love, through atomic torbans, which spread love between one another, not destroy the planet we live on. That's what Jesus was talking about.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of finishing off this conversation, and I think the work you're doing is amazing. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit of your story, and let's try to get this to. You should be on Twitter if you want to contact. I will put the link on Twitter, but Twitter is a place where all the journalists are. I would put some clips and things, but it's they like for the media, for the Western, like let's say legacy or like mainstream media to be great, maybe catch on other podcasts that are like even way bigger and be able to spread the word. But it's wonderful. Yeah, I'm very happy to have talked to you today. I'll try to put this out even today or at most tomorrow, so that these things can go out, and then later on you'll send me the links to your PayPal and all that stuff, and then people and I'll put links to your social media contacts. And Jurij, Slava Ukraina, thank you for being with me today.
Slava Trichi, Slava. Glory to the heroes.
Yes.
Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the free world, and glory to anybody who prays for Ukraine. Your prayers are the support. That's what it's about. This war is not to destroy Ukraine or give Putin, another chunk of the world. The war is God's gift so that we can, out of our fear, open our eyes, get off the couch, get into gear, and learn how to love one another. Glory to all the love in the world and everybody who tries to love one another.
I mean,
Дякую, Pedro.
Дякую.